In today's clock repair essentials lesson, we're going to look at a clock repair tool that is pretty much seriously overlooked by most people, and that is the screwdriver, a very important tool that we're going to look into today at some more serious depth. I've looked at it a couple of times throughout the years, but today we're going to dive into it a bit deeper, and I'll show you a couple of modifications that we use to make the tools far more effective when we're working on clocks. All right, these are the tools that you're going to require for the first part of the lesson when we'll be looking at Phillips head screwdrivers, these little guys here. We'll have a look and see what the problem is with modern Phillips head screws in relation to the screwdrivers. These are the tools that we'll be using today. A 2-inch bench vise. You can see that's done a fair bit of work over the years, but still a sturdy little companion. And some fine needle files, or any fine file that you've got will do the job as long as they're fine. And last but not least, a piece of 2000 grit paper. All right, let's get started. I'll remove these for the moment. I'll just clean our whiteboard first, bring it up to speed. All right, now, back in the day, when most countries produced a full range of products, for example, these two here we'll be using, a Phillips head screw and a Phillips head screwdriver. One was completely compatible with the other. And this is what things look like. That's a Phillips head screw, believe it or not. Now the Phillips head screwdriver, this portion here that fits into the screw, would fit like so. And the tip of the screwdriver would go all the way to the bottom of the screw. Consequently, the blades on the tip of the screwdriver would catch up the sides. I'll use a larger one for demonstration purposes. The 4 blades on the tip of the screwdriver would fit right down completely into the screw, and that's how deep the screw would have to be to accommodate the screwdriver. And they were in actual fact built to that specification in the old days when they had concepts like quality control, etc. But now that most manufacturing is done in Southeast Asia, concepts like quality control tend to be disappearing. That's our new screw that we've got from Southeast Asia. Manufacturing is based on turning out as many units as possible, as cheaply as possible. Consequently, some things have to change. So what's happened now, instead of the Phillips head screwdriver blades being able to go all the way down to right down to the base of the screw so that the blades on either side have maximum friction against the sides of the screw, and you can screw it out or screw it in very strongly. That now is not the situation with the new batch of screws that are now available. All right, I'll redraw this now. What we have now is we have much shallower, from there to there, we have much shallower screws. For example, the one I just showed you, there's no way that that screwdriver is going to be able to fit into that screw properly. So what we have our screwdriver coming down, it hits the bottom, goes up the sides like so, and just about half of the actual blades on the tip of the screwdriver are down inside the head of the screw. Consequently, when you're turning the screwdriver around, it's very easy for the screwdriver to rise up and slip out of the screw. Not easy to see there, but that's what I'm doing. It means that when you're using modern Phillips head screws, coming out of Southeast Asia, etc. They are all too small. They're not deep enough. This slot here in the screw head is not deep enough to be able to insert the entire head of the Phillips screwdriver into it. So how we handle that problem, there's no way we can modify the screws, the individual screws. So what we do with our Phillips head screwdriver, that's a shaft like so, and then it comes down to a point and up, and it's got those four little blades on it. We effectively remove a tiny bit of the tip, thereby shortening the amount of the screwdriver blade that will go into the screw, so that we end up with a screwdriver shaped and coming down, and that's one of the other blades, and then it is then cut off there along the bottom so that the blades can then reach deeper into the screw like so, and you've got all that additional friction down there and down there, which means that the screwdriver is not going to jump out of the screw. You can lean on it, twist it, and the screwdriver will remain in the screw. All right, so that's what we're going to do now. With this screwdriver here, we're going to remove that tip, that sharp tip there. They have a blunt end on. This is what we're going to do with this little guy here, a number 1 Phillips. That's a number 3 Phillips. I've taken the end off it, and it now fits comfortably into modern Phillips head screws. All right, so that's what we're going to do now. So first thing we do is we set up our 2-inch bench vise over here. I'll move the camera across so we can see what we're doing. There's our 2-inch bench vise. I'll put the screwdriver blade up vertically as close to 90 degrees to the flats on the top of the vise as I can get it. Now, how you use a file, you don't ever rasp a file backwards and forwards. That is not how you use a file. A file, especially these fine ones, but all files are designed to be draw filed, which means you align the top of the file parallel to the top of the vise in this instance, and then move it in one direction straight ahead, holding the file parallel to the top of the vise. And it only takes half a dozen swipes with a medium strength file. You can see already there's a shiny tip on the end of that. See, you can see we've taken the tip off that. Right, so I put that back into the vise, align it perpendicular again. What we're going to do now, we'll take another couple of stripes over the top with a finer file. Once again, draw filing it, keeping it nice and flat. And then we'll go for our super duper ultra fine file. 4 stripes over the top. So that is now looking very shiny. The tip is gone, which will be sufficient to allow us to insert the screwdriver right down to the bottom of the screw and turn it round. Now, last thing we do, I'll remove the bench vise. We need a strong flat surface. So I have a piece of glass that I built a frame for here, quite sturdy. Now we put our piece of 2000 mesh sandpaper on the glass, and holding the screwdriver perpendicular, we draw it across the 2000 grit sandpaper half a dozen times. If that's looking all right, we'll turn the screwdriver 90 degrees because we're removing any fine marks left by our finest file. Turn it again. And that's running pretty smoothly. That is looking all right. I'll take a photo of that so you can see what we've done with it. But this screwdriver now fits way down inside that screw. As we saw before, the screw should be another probably 3 or 4 mils deeper, because even so I've still got, where's a pair of tweezers, between the top of the screw head and the top of the blades on the screwdriver is still about 3 mils, 3.5 mils. So that's how much deeper the hole in this screw should be in an optimum world. But that's holding far stronger, and it's turning around in my fingers very, very efficiently. All right, so that's how we do modification on a Phillips head screwdriver, so that they work in any situation with modern screws. You don't often see Phillips head screws in clock cases, but more and more people who are dabbling in repairing clocks don't know where to look and find the correct replacement screws, so they use Phillips head screws instead. These are slotted head screws, and that is what you expect to find in a clock. They're dome head ones. There's some cheese heads in there, there's some flat ones, there's some domed ones. But you don't expect to see Phillips head screws in clocks. So unfortunately, dodgy workmanship, it's far better to put in a crappy screw instead of actually finding where the proper ones come from, making a purchase and doing a proper job.